Something happened at the Indian Wells tennis garden in the California desert that nobody in the sport was fully prepared for. Not the tournament directors. Not the seasoned sports writers who have covered this event for decades. Not even the world's top-ranked players who have commanded these courts for years. Nobody saw it coming at the scale it arrived, and now that it's here, nobody in tennis can look away. The girl from Quezon City has landed in tennis paradise, and she has turned the place upside down. Her name is Alexandra Eala. She is 20 years old. She is ranked in the top 30 in the world. And right now, in March of 2026, she is the most talked about, most watched, most passionately followed athlete at one of the biggest tennis tournaments on the planet. We are not speaking in metaphors. We are not exaggerating for effect. The numbers, the scenes, and the reactions from the people inside this sport will tell you everything you need to know. Let us start with what happened 6 hours before her second round match even began. Long lines had already formed outside Stadium 3 at the Indian Wells Tennis Garden 6 hours before Alexandra Eala was scheduled to walk onto the court for her match against Diana Yastremska. 6 hours. There were still 2 other matches set to be played before she would even pick up her racket. But the fans were already there, standing in line under the desert sun, holding Philippine flags, wearing shirts that read Alexandra Eala Fan Club, refusing to miss a single second of the experience. The scene was something that tournament veterans said they had rarely, if ever, witnessed for a non-headline match at this stage of the draw. And when delays pushed the match into the cold desert night, making it the latest starting match of the entire day, those fans did not move. They sat in the stands wrapped in winter coats and blankets, with flags still raised, voices still ready, refusing to let the chill of the California evening dull a single moment of their devotion. The match ran for 2 hours and 43 minutes, the longest of the day. It stretched to 3 sets. Eala was nearly broken in the third, staring down match point pressure, and still the fans held their breath and their ground. When Eala finally closed it out 7-5, 4-6, 7-5, just before midnight, the roar that erupted from that stadium could have been mistaken for a championship final. That is the Eala effect. And if you are only hearing about it now, you have been asleep for the last year. To understand what is happening at Indian Wells in 2026, you have to understand how this story started, because the beginning is as dramatic as anything we are seeing right now. Just a year ago, Alexandra Eala was ranked outside the top 100 in the world. She was a promising prospect, a product of the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, where she had trained since she was 13 years old, but she was largely unknown outside of tennis circles. She had no major titles. She had no top 10 wins. She had a small but passionate following in the Philippines, a country that had never produced a player who cracked the WTA top 100, let alone the top 30. Then came Miami 2025. As a wild card entry, meaning she had not even earned direct entry into the draw, Eala began knocking out Grand Slam champions like she had been doing it her entire career. First, she beat Madison Keys. Then she stepped onto the court against the world number 2, Iga Swiatek, a 4-time Grand Slam champion and one of the most dominant players in the history of the sport. Swiatek was supposed to win in straight sets. Instead, Eala dismantled her. The Filipino community in Miami showed up in force, and the atmosphere in that stadium crackled with a kind of electricity you usually only feel at a major final. Eala reached the semifinals of the Miami Open as a wild card. The tennis world stopped and stared. Since that moment, the trajectory of Alexandra Eala's career has been nothing short of extraordinary. She broke into the top 100 for the first time, the first Filipino player in history, man or woman, to ever achieve that milestone. She reached the final of the Eastbourne Open. She won matches against top 10 caliber players at WTA 1000 events. She went to Dubai in early 2026 and sold out every single one of her matches in a quarterfinal run, defeating world number 7 Jasmine Paolini of Italy along the way before falling to Coco Guaff. The Dubai tournament director, Solatalik, spoke openly about what Eala had done to his event, saying that the stadium was sold out for every one of her matches, that people were desperately trying to get tickets and finding none, and that she had attracted an entirely new demographic to the sport of tennis. That is not a minor achievement. That is a seismic shift in the commercial and cultural power of the WTA Tour, and it arrived in the body of a 20-year-old from the Philippines. Now she is in Indian Wells, a tournament so significant, so prestigious, that it is often called the fifth Grand Slam, and the machine she built is running at full power. The BNP Paribas Open is the most attended tennis event outside of the 4 Grand Slams. Every year, the biggest names in the sport descend on the California desert, and the courts at Indian Wells Tennis Garden are packed with some of the most knowledgeable tennis fans on the planet. Carlos Alcaraz plays here. Novak Djokovic has played here. Coco Guaff plays here. This is not a fringe event. This is one of the crown jewels of professional tennis. And in 2026, for the first time in her career, Alexandra Eala has arrived at Indian Wells as a seeded player, and the tournament has not been the same since the moment she walked through the gates. The Indian Wells social media team posted what they called a day in the life video featuring Eala on the Thursday before her match. By the time she was playing her second round match 2 days later, that video had accumulated 94,000 views on YouTube, far and away the most watched piece of content the tournament had produced all year. Not a video featuring a top 5 player. Not a video about the stadium or the history of the event. A video about Alexandra Eala, ranked 31st in the world at the time, going about her day at the tournament. 94,000 views. The tournament officials promoting this openly, bragging about it, because they understand that what Eala does for their event is something money cannot simply manufacture. The BNP Paribas Open executive Philippe Dor was asked directly about the Eala phenomenon, and his response was as frank as it was revealing. He said, simply, that the tournament loves every minute of it. That they benefit from it, that they promote it. These are not the words of an organization that is tolerating an inconvenient wave of fans. These are the words of people who recognize that they are witnessing something genuinely rare, the arrival of a player who does not just compete at a tournament, but transforms it. And the Instagram numbers back up everything you are seeing on the ground. Eala currently has close to 1 million followers on Instagram. That is more than double the following of players like Jessica Pegula, Madison Keys, and Amanda Anisimova, all established, decorated, highly ranked WTA professionals. A player who was outside the top 112 months ago now has a larger social media presence than women who have been ranked in the top 10 for years. The sport has never quite seen an ascent like this in the social media era, and the tennis establishment is paying very close attention. Even Coco Guaff, a 2-time Grand Slam champion, one of the most popular athletes in America, a woman who has been a global star since she was 15 years old, felt compelled to publicly acknowledge what Eala was doing. After their Dubai quarterfinal match, in which Guaff won convincingly, but played in front of a stadium that was overwhelmingly pro-Eala, Guaff stepped up to the microphone and said something that may be the most telling endorsement the Eala movement has yet received. She thanked the crowd for coming out. She acknowledged, with a smile, that they were mostly there for Alex. And then she said this. She thanked Alexandra Eala for bringing a new demographic to the sport. She said she appreciated it. She said it was great. Think about that for a moment. One of the biggest stars in women's tennis, playing on her own tournament schedule and her own victory remarks, taking time to praise the woman she just beat for what she is doing for the game. That is not a routine moment. That is a testament to how undeniably real the Eala effect has become. Back in the California desert, the energy that Eala generates was visible before a single ball was struck. Her practice sessions at Indian Wells were packed with fans even before her first competitive match of the tournament. People were not waiting to see if she played well. They were not waiting for results to decide if she was worth watching. They were showing up for practice. Hundreds of them, holding flags, cheering, creating an atmosphere at a training session that some venues don't produce during actual matches. One Filipino fan, spotted by reporters at the practice courts and still wearing his Pilipinas shirt, summed up the sentiment of an entire community with a single sentence.
Really? You signed up for Tennis Channel to watch her?
Yeah, because sometimes they don't show it.
So the year subscription, just in case?
No, the monthly.
Oh, the monthly, okay.
The monthly, just in case she doesn't play, then we don't... Right? You only pay when she plays. It's paid to play.
He said she was humble and she worked hard, and that was why they loved her. He called her the face of Philippine sports. Another fan admitted to subscribing to American tennis channels and paying for streaming access purely for when Alex plays. Not for the sport in general. For her specifically. This is not casual fandom. This is devotion of a different order entirely. There is an important piece of context that explains why the Filipino community has responded to Eala with this particular intensity. It involves history, geography, pride, and the very human need to see someone who looks like you achieve something the world told you was impossible. The Philippines is a country with a deep and fierce sporting culture. Basketball and boxing have long dominated the national conversation, and when those sports have produced legends, the entire country has stopped to watch. Manny Pacquiao at his peak was not just a sports story in the Philippines. He was a national moment. Life stopped when he fought. Roads went quiet. Families gathered. TJ Manitok, a longtime Filipino sports journalist who was quoted by Front Office Sports about the Eala phenomenon, captured it perfectly. He said that the country had been hungry for the next Manny Pacquiao. He said that when Pacquiao was at his peak, nothing moved. When there was a fight, the roads were empty. Now, for the first time since that era, the Philippines has found a new figure who creates that kind of collective suspension of ordinary life. And the reach of the Filipino diaspora makes the impact of that devotion global. More than 10 million Filipinos live outside the Philippines. In California alone, roughly 1.7 million Filipinos call the state home, making it the largest Filipino-American population of any state in the country. When Alexandra Eala plays at Indian Wells, she is not just playing for fans who happen to buy tickets. She is playing for a community that is practically on her doorstep, a community that has been waiting their entire lives for an athlete of this magnitude to emerge from their culture and claim space at the very top of world sport. Eala herself has spoken about this responsibility with a maturity that is remarkable for a 20-year-old. She has said openly that her goal as a junior player was to be ranked high enough to envision herself at the top. She moved to Spain at 13 years old, leaving her family, her country, and everything familiar to train at one of the most demanding academies in the sport. She spent years grinding through the junior ranks, making incremental progress while staying largely outside the spotlight. And when she finally broke through in Miami last year, she did not just step into the tennis conversation. She stepped into the hearts of 110 million people back home and millions more spread across the globe. She has said she never expected this kind of crowd or this kind of fan base. She has said she did not think it would happen just because of what she was doing on tour. She is grateful. That gratitude, that humility, that genuine disbelief that so many people care so much, this is precisely why they care so much. There is nothing performative about Alexandra Eala. She is not building a brand by trying to build a brand. She is competing, improving, fighting, and leaving everything she has on the court, and the world is watching and falling in love with the process. Now consider what happened on the night of her second-round match, a match that ended just before midnight in the cold desert air, with fans who had been waiting since the afternoon still on their feet and roaring. That match against Yastremska was a fight. Eala won the first set 7-5, then dropped the second 4-6. Yastremska served for the match in the third set, breaking to lead 5-4, and in that moment the entire weight of the evening seemed to press down on the stadium. The Filipino fans did not crumble. They lifted. They sang. They pushed. Eala broke back. She won 3 straight games. She closed out the match just before the clock struck midnight, and the crowd erupted in an ovation that filled the desert night. A sign in the front row read Laban Alex, which means fight Alex in Tagalog. She fought. She won. And in the stands, people wept. For them to make the effort to stay up late and stay in the cold and cheer me on, Eala said in the early hours of Saturday morning, speaking to reporters with the match still fresh in her lungs and her heart. It really added to the feelings and the emotions after the match. She paused. She meant every word. It means the world to have this community behind me in such a prestigious tournament. Then came Sunday, March 8th, 2026, International Women's Day, and the match that everyone had been building toward arrived. Eala versus Coco Guaff on Stadium 1, the main showpiece court at Indian Wells, in front of a full house at one of the most watched tennis events on the calendar. Eala had spoken about Guaff with genuine admiration and zero fear. She had said she would love to play her again. She said Guaff was a role model, an incredible athlete, an incredible person. She said she learned something every time she shared a court with her. And she said she was ready. The match began. And then something happened that nobody had scripted, nobody had planned, and nobody who was there will ever forget. Coco Guaff, in the second set, withdrew from the match with an arm injury. She had been battling physical discomfort, and with her health on the line, she made the difficult decision to retire from the contest. It was an abrupt end to what was supposed to be one of the marquee clashes of the tournament. And in that moment, on International Women's Day,
first and foremost, I want to say Happy Women's Day, everybody.
with her mother Riza watching from the stands and 16,000 people looking on, Alexandra Eala did something that showed exactly who she is. She did not celebrate a walkover. She did not raise her arms and let the crowd carry her. She walked to the microphone and she spoke from her heart. She said she wanted to thank all the incredible women who had paved the way and who had advocated for themselves and for other women. She said that Coco Guaff was among them. She called Guaff an amazing competitor and an amazing role model. She wished her a speedy recovery. And then she turned to her mother in the stands and she said, "I want to thank her for being the amazing woman that she is and for helping me become the woman that I am." And that goes for all mothers. Riza Eala, watching from the crowd, blew kisses back toward her daughter. There was not a dry eye in the stadium. This is the moment that defines Alexandra Eala, not the rankings, not the prize money, not the head-to-head records. It is the moment when the spotlight was entirely hers, and she used it to point it at someone else. She used it to honor a rival who was hurting. She used it to lift her mother. She used it to celebrate women everywhere on International Women's Day. The crowd gave her a standing ovation that had nothing to do with tennis.